Good evening, and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. If you could please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Kicker.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer. Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. I felt like giving you a wave. All right, let's see. Next is our opportunity to adopt this evening's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler.
I will move the adoption of the agenda with one change, to move consent item number 6 to new business.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson, to adopt the agenda with one change, moving item 6 to new business. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. And we are up to approval of the minutes of the July 21st meeting.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Wells. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And those minutes are approved. We are on to then 4 items on the consent agenda. And the first one is item 2 on this evening's agenda, and that is to adopt Resolution 20-66, appointing George Blindauer to the Arts Commission. George Blindauer has submitted an application for the Arts Commission and attended the July 21st, 2020 Arts Commission meeting. After discussion with the applicant, the Arts Commission recommends Mr. Blindauer, be appointed to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2022. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 20-66, appointing George Blindauer to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2022. Next item is actually item 3 on this evening's agenda, is to ratify the temporary expansion of liquor licensing to allow for expanded outdoor service. Governor Walz's Order 20-63 allows restaurants to open with limited outdoor seating beginning June 1st. In an attempt to assist businesses with reopening, the staff created a temporary outdoor dining policy which provides the guidelines under which our liquor license holders and can expand their premises. Staff has verified that all requirements have been met and approved temporary expansions for the following location until October 31st, 2020. And that is Applebee's at 3470 129th Avenue Northwest. So we're looking to ratify the temporary expansion of liquor license premise as outlined above through October 31st, 2020. And then the next item on the consent agenda is item 4, and that's to approve the agreement with Anoka-Ramsey Community College for the security contract. The contract between the city and the state of Minnesota is reviewed and renewed each year, roughly following the state's fiscal calendar in a typical school year. The current contract expired on June 30th, 2020, and the new contract reflects a total contract amount not to exceed $33,000 and would be effective July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. So we're looking to authorize the mayor and the city manager to enter into an agreement with the state of Minnesota and Anoka-Ramsey Community College to provide security services for 2020 and 2021. And the last item on our consent agenda is item 5, and that's to approve the final payment to McPhillips Brothers Roofing for project 20-4 roof replacement. And that would be the roof replacement here at the Civic Center. And the final payment, we're looking to approve the final payment to McPhillips Brothers Roofing in the amount of $52,861 for project 20-4. Yeah. So, and that was the contract amount. We paid them $1 million, $1,400,359, and this was just basically the balance due then. So, okay.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Kicker?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Kicker, second by Johnson, or Griscoviac?
I think it was Brad.
Griscoviac.
Yep.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda is approved and adopted. We are now under, and it's still number 6.
It is still number 6.
That's pretty handy. All right. So item number 6, which is now under new business, is we're considering approving a request to allow a 1-year extension for external auditing services. And Mr. Stemwell, you want to take, I saw Mr. Harlicker moving and I thought, Mr. Harlicker's going to take this one?
Mayor,
Mr. Stemwell?
Council, I will defer to Finance Director Fran Hanson to provide a little more background on this topic and what the source of the request is. So
All
with
right,
that,
very
Fran.
good.
Thank you. Mayor Cook, Council, I presented this proposal to Matt earlier this month because it would be the 7th year of an audit firm at the city, and we're only allowed by resolution to have a firm for 6 years. The reason I made my request was a couple of things. One, the COVID social distancing restrictions made it very difficult this year for us to conduct our audit. However, it went well because we had a seasoned audit staff that knew us, they knew our controls, they knew our policies and our staff. So by doing things by phone and email, it went rather smoothly. I feared this year that if we went out for an RFP and got a new audit firm, that it would make it very difficult for them as well as staff in trying to coordinate, especially the beginning walkthroughs when they learn our procedures and our policies. And then a little while ago, we did receive the COVID-19 special federal grant money. So we found out that we needed to have a single audit along with our regular audit, which meant additional time and fees to conduct audit on all of the money that we plan on spending for this grant. Because the state did this so rapidly, it gave us so little time, we've been relying on our auditors to help us with some of the regulations that we need to follow in order to comply with all of the rules and regulations for compliance. Therefore, I reached out to MMKR, and they've been assisting me, free of charge for now because they're no longer our auditors. And so I approached Matt to ask him if we could possibly invite MMKR to give us a proposal for a 2020 audit and have them one additional year because of these circumstances. They came back with a 2% fee increase over 2019. For the past 3 years, they've been doing a 3%. So we thought that the proposal was reasonable, and we were also a little bit leery about what's out there right now and what type of fee we will get, considering the circumstances with this new social distancing we seem to be having no end to. So I guess that was my rationale for it, and I would just ask council if they would please consider this one-time extension.
And Mr. Stemwell, this isn't the first time we've done this, correct?
Mayor, Council, correct. As far as we could find, there have been a couple other instances where we haven't stuck with the 6-year cadence. In one case back in 2003 or thereabouts, we did extend for 1 year because there were some new GASB requirements, and I think the thought was it was so complicated, let's not rock the boat with switching and adding that on. And there was one other instance where we actually went shorter. It was 3 years instead of 6 due to escalating costs of that particular auditor. So it's happened infrequently and only when there's been a specific need, but there has been some history of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah, so I asked that this get moved off of the consent agenda so we could have the conversation. And Ms. Hanson graciously provided a lot more detail and background to me over the last day or so than what was in our memo. And speaking as a former auditor, you know, it is critical for transparency and trust in the numbers to have a rotation in your lead partner. The audit firm can actually stay the same, but your trusted partner and relationship manager, if you're a public company, would have to be changing every 5 years. And so for me, it was important that we had this conversation and didn't just make it a blanket statement, say, okay, yeah, it's okay. We talked about how important it is that we trust the auditor, that they are truly independent, and that we're getting a good view of, are we doing the right things, and entrusting our tax dollars on how we're doing that with our citizens. You know, and so with the additional information about, you know, the COVID audit, you know, if we look at this as a 1 year and look to say we will start early for an RFP for next year, or find ways that we are looking at a different relationship manager versus keeping that same person for the last 7 years, I would be much more comfortable with that. But I just wanted it on the record that we were purposefully making this move and why we were doing it. Is that fair?
Yep.
Is everybody?
Any questions of Ms. Hanson or Mr. Stemwaddle?
So, okay, so with that, I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 74-117, extending external audit services to MMKR for 2020 financial statement audit.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Kicker. Discussion?
I would just say thank you so much for providing all the additional information and letting us get that information out to the public of why we're doing this.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item 7, and that is to consider approval of Resolution 20-67, approving a lot split 10506 Hanson Boulevard, Coon Rapids United Methodist Church. That's what Mr. Harlicher's up here for.
Council and Mayor, what's being proposed here is a lot split. It's off of Hanson, Coon Rapids Boulevard. This is the service road here. The Methodist Church is here, and I believe that's the vet clinic here. And this little parcel here is what's being considered tonight, this odd shape. And here's the actual lot split. Parcel B will be retained by the city and utilized as for the street for right-of-way purposes. Parcel A will go to the church, and when this property it has to be combined, excuse me. One of the conditions of the recommendation is that parcel A be combined with the the church property over here. When this property does finally develop, the whole thing will have to be platted into one lot. But prior to that, parcel A needs to be actually combined through the county. At the Planning Commission meeting held on June 18th, no one spoke at the public hearing, and the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the lot split with the conditions that all engineering comments be addressed and parcel A be combined with the abutting United Methodist Church property.
Mr. Harlicher, it's just a symmetry thing or something, but why doesn't that radius that comes around the inside on parcel B, why doesn't that continue through
Parcel A.
parcel A instead of that weird jog into parcel B, which will be part of the road?
I I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
This is, as you can say, it's kind of a unique parcel to start with,
Well, certainly, it just seems like a weird little,
that it should go,
that it should have just gone straight across it rather than having a little weird jog in
Yeah.
the property, but it's probably not a nickel's worth of difference. I was just curious. Okay, anybody have an easier question?
Mr. Mayor, I mean,
Councilmember Geisler?
this seems pretty straightforward. The church is interested in that little piece, and we'll have another case on that coming up. So in planning case 20-4, I would recommend approval of resolution 20-67, approving the proposed lot split with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed, and parcel A be combined with the abutting United Methodist Church property.
second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Wells. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
And that motion carries. Item 8 then is to consider introduction of an ordinance, land sale to Coon Rapids United Methodist Church. I hope we're getting big bucks for piece A. Nothing. All right. At its August 4th meeting, the council will consider a lot split application. We've already done that. The parcel was acquired by the city in the 70s for construction of the South Frontage Road. Portions of this parcel are wider than necessary. We've already kind of gone through that. The lot split application was initiated. The lot split creates the smaller parcel A, which will be sold to the church, and the larger parcel B, which would be retained by the city for roadway purposes. And the church is interested in acquiring parcel A in order to better position the church's land for eventual sale. A similarly sized sliver of excess land was conveyed to the adjacent veterinary clinic approximately 20 years ago, and the church has agreed to a sale price of $500 for the parcel. That's actually more than I thought it would go for. The council is asked to introduce an ordinance authorizing the sale, and the council would then consider adoption of the ordinance as well as a deed at its August 18th meeting. So all of this is just an introduction. Does anybody have any other questions before we consider this introduced? If not, then we will consider this as being introduced. And we are on to item 9. Consider guidelines for the Coon Rapids Business Relief Grant Program. Mr. Brown, it's been so long since I've seen you at a meeting. It's great to see you.
Minimize the number of staff at meetings.
Are you going to do a presentation on this, or?
I can just provide a verbal update. Obviously, the council considered this program at a work session just last week. We did make a handful of minor changes based on that discussion, so we can talk a little bit further about that. Basically, this program uses the federal CARES Act dollars that the city is receiving, that the state allocated to local governments. We have decided at the staff level it makes a lot of sense to use a good portion of that for a business relief grant program to get some of those funds just back into the community, in addition to using some of them to assist with costs that the city has incurred due to the pandemic. So this program overall is structured very similarly to other CARES Act programs in Minnesota. The state, for instance, used a portion of its federal dollars for a program like this. There's been a lot of competition for that one, so I think it'll be good for our businesses here to supplement that, provided, assuming many of them were not ultimately selected for that program. Hennepin and Ramsey County have had similar programs. They actually received a special CARES Act allocation due to their larger population a couple months back. Anoka County is doing a similar program, as are other cities. Many of the programs around the region have had a $10,000 grant amount. We are proposing a little bit larger amounts just to make a bigger impact. So we're proposing $15,000 for businesses with fewer than 20 employees, and $30,000 for those businesses with between 20 and 100 employees. In terms of the businesses that would be eligible for this, it would be a pretty wide range. We would not be including home occupations, but would really be including all sorts of bricks and mortar businesses, just because those, generally have higher costs associated with them since they're occupying commercial real estate. The funds could be used to cover a variety of costs associated with the pandemic. Those are outlined in the loan guidelines that are before you. In general, businesses will simply have to demonstrate a financial hardship, and we want to provide a lot of flexibility with respect to what constitutes a hardship. So that could be a loss in revenue year over year. It could also be simply just a verification that a business was affected by the shutdown orders that occurred earlier this spring. So in terms of the changes that were made since last week, fairly minimal. We did eliminate the references to a lottery method of selection for applicants. It's really our hope that we can fund pretty much everyone who applies. So if this initial $1.6 million allocation isn't enough, we should know that within a month or so once we go through the application process, and can kind of evaluate if we want to shift some more funds to the program or how we want to deal with that. We could also consider simply reducing the amount each business would receive. So some of that, we provide some flexibility in those loan or grant guidelines, just so we can react to that. But like I said, it is our hope to really fund nearly everyone who applies. We do intend to work with Central Minnesota Development Company to assist with administering the program. Businesses will apply digitally through the city's website. We'll generate a list, and CMDC will help us out with kind of the review of financial statements. So it should be pretty straightforward. We want to make this easy for businesses to apply, be able to do it online, sign the grant agreement online. We want to make it straightforward so that as many businesses are able to take advantage of this as possible. So I can answer any questions.
Okay. Councilmember Kicker?
Matt, where does the 1.6 million come from? Is that, or is that what we anticipate? Is that based on number of businesses? How did we come up with that?
Mayor, Council, I can speak to that a little bit. We thought that would certainly provide for a good number of grants. It's approximately about 1/3 of our total federal allocation. And so we wanted to be very intentional and provide a lot of benefit without kind of getting carried away with our total allotment right now, when we know we've got a lot of other potential programs and then city costs that can be covered by these dollars. So we thought a third it was a little bit arbitrary. We just sort of picked that number, knowing it could fund a lot of grants. It would show in earnest to businesses up front that we're putting a lot of investment in it. If for some reason, we get some applications and we're slightly over that number, I think we could probably be pretty flexible. If it's double what we expected, then we might want to think of alternatives like prorating the amount that we're giving out and things like that.
Right.
Just to come through with it.
Okay, thanks.
Before we lock into, you would come back to council, correct? I mean, if we get enough businesses, right before we started reducing grant amounts, you would come back to council and go, should we reallocate another X number of dollars, correct?
Mayor, Council, correct. We could come back to you and let you know, hey, we're under, we got plenty of money, nothing to worry about, we have excess, or we're right there, or we need more, or how do we want to handle that? Certainly, those would be part of the conversation that would come back to you.
Yeah, because at only a third, it seems like
Yep.
we should have more that we could allocate that direction.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
So I asked a number of different things, because the summary in our packet and the attachment, there were a few things that just weren't in alignment and were actually a little different from our conversation at the work session last week. So in addition to my general things about, let's make sure we say up to 15, maximum 30, few, kinds of general comments that way, there were a couple pieces that were different that I wanted to make sure that we looked at. One was that there's a requirement now, because we took off that you had to have, it was like a 10%, you had to show something, we went to just a financial hardship. But now it says that a business must have been opened by March 1st, 2019, basically, because you have to have been in business a year by March 1st to be eligible. And to me, I'm concerned that that is maybe too long, because we have a number of newer businesses that started in our city after March 1st, and wanted to know, would we look at a shorter time period? I know that makes it a little harder to look at financial hardship because there isn't a year-over-year comparison. But to me, that was something I wanted to have a conversation on before we said, yep, you have to be in business over a year by March.
And Mr. Brown?
Your Honor, I was just going to suggest, if the council is interested in addressing that issue, I might suggest one way of doing that. The reason we have that 1 year limit, and certainly it could be shortened if you were interested in that. Part of the reason we were proposing that was that it's, in terms of the underwriting process, it's fairly easy to see a drop in revenues if we request 2019 year-to-date financial statements, compare them to 2020 year-to-date financial statements, particularly for those businesses that were affected by the governor's executive orders that shut down certain types of businesses. We could simply exempt those and say that they, if they were in operation at the first of the year, they qualify for no matter what, as opposed to requiring that they have been in business for a year. I think we would want to see, for other types of businesses, some period of time so we can document that there is a change in the financial statements, but I think we'd be comfortable if that was less than a year as well. We could also, simply remove that 12-month reference, and as we continue to develop our criteria for underwriting, we can kind of take that under advisement. I will mention we are having those conversations with CMDC. We haven't yet identified exactly what we are going to require in terms of documentation, but are moving quickly to do that.
And I would support that, because if we don't do it now, we're going to hear about it, and we're going to be back here amending this in a couple of weeks when the businesses that just open later in the year discover that we're not going to help them.
Right, and I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense, to look at a business that opened in July, but they would have to have opened prior to somebody reasonably looking at that pandemic, potentially closing the businesses. So to me, I would be fine, with January 1st at the start of the year. And obviously, it's going to be harder to look at that financial hardship. But, I trust that we can pass those hurdles and figure out a way to assess that need for those businesses that are new in our community, because I don't want to overlook them.
Yeah.
Is that general?
No, that's good.
So I have another one.
Okay.
Unless somebody else. Did Wade?
I was going to have one, but if you've got another one, I can wait.
Okay. The other one I had was there was a statement that about businesses that were in default as of February 29th, 2020. Totally makes sense. Where I wanted to ask the question about was, what about any business since then that has potentially moved into a default position? Can they still apply for a loan a grant? And to me, I would want to make sure that we have within some sort of criteria that if we have a business that even with the grant is not going to be sustainable, that they can't continue or open or be in business. My personal preference is that we are supporting businesses to stay in our community, to keep them here in our community versus funding a business that is going to be gone, if that makes sense. And that probably is really more criteria than anything. And then the other, last one that I had, I believe, other than my grammar kinds of things, was that there is a statement about the PPP funds for payroll, and if you got PPP, that these grant funds would not be eligible for payroll. I wanted us to take a little broader picture of that. PPP funds have expired. So there are a number of our businesses that have used PPP funds but are now paying payroll where PPP has not covered them. So to be able to do the language in a way that talks about, yes, you can't use the grant for PPP covered payroll, but payroll that was not covered by PPP could be eligible. And if that would be the other change that I would request.
Is it Mr. Steinbuttel?
Mayor, Council, and that was our intent. I think we have to clarify it, as Councilmember Geisler did provide us some notes, and we looked at that, and we can make that more clear as we go into underwriting. But yes, so long as the business isn't double dipping, if they're not requesting
Right.
grant funds of us that have been covered by something else that are, federally or state provided, then they're in the clear.
Yep. So those were the three key things that I wanted to make clear. But otherwise, I think the program is phenomenal. I think it will really help our businesses, and that is the whole intent, to be able to make sure that we can keep our businesses in our town and help them through this pandemic.
All right. Councilmember Demmer, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. So there's kind of a special case I just want to make sure we considered, which is the businesses, especially along Foley, that were in pretty major road construction in 2019. If they're asked to say how much they lost versus 2019, that might be sort of lowballing them, and then they'd have 2 tough years in a row. So maybe just letting businesses that we know were affected pretty significantly by road construction use 2018 instead as their year to date might be a nice touch. And then, I don't know what to do if there's a business that's in road construction right now and it's hard to prove whether it's the road construction or the COVID. I guess I would assume that we just kind of trust them, but so I don't want to throw that wrinkle in. But the ones along Foley, I think we know had some negative effects last year, and so it seems like we should go back another year for them. The second one is, the minute this hits the airwaves, I think people are going to start asking questions, and I know it's not all finalized yet. Who should businesses contact? I know the window doesn't open until late August, but I'm guessing a lot of people would want to get their ducks in a row between now and then. So should they wait to contact someone? Should they contact right away? And just kind of giving people instructions, maybe even putting it on the front page of the website, something like that to help people understand that this grant is there.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, we'll start putting this on the website very, very soon. I would suggest if there is anyone who really wants to be notified as soon as the application window opens, I would suggest signing up for the Business and Economic Development e-newsletter through the city's website. We will send an email out through that as soon as the application window opens, as well as a little information before that. But we do intend to publicize this pretty well. Obviously, I'm happy to talk to anyone who has questions in the meantime, but I would suggest signing up for the e-newsletter to be notified as soon as things open up.
Okay.
But then even before it opens, because if it's a really short window, like a 10-day window, I assume we would be sending out what sort of documentation they're going to need to submit, because it might take a while to get all that put together. So I would hope we would tell people, 2 weeks ahead of the window opening, hey, get this documentation ready. This is probably what we're going to need.
Matt Brown is nodding his head. I think
Yep,
that's a good sign.
That's our plan. We'll take a couple weeks to have really specific information out there as we publicize the program.
Okay. I was just giving Wade the play-by-play because he couldn't see you. All right. All good suggestions. And I would be willing to bet there will be something else you'll be coming back with as you're working this through. All right.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler, there we go.
I
Thank
would
you.
make a motion to approve the attached guidelines on the Small Business Relief Program with some of the edits that we have discussed here today for the Coon Rapids Business Relief Grant Program, and authorize staff to implement the program and execute an agreement with Central Minnesota Development Company to assist with the administration of the program.
Second that.
Motion by Geisler, second by Johnson. Discussion? Hearing no additional discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item 10, to consider planning case 20-9, consider a preliminary plat and final plat, Noberg Homes, 2403 109th Avenue, 6 townhome lots and common area. Mr. Harlicker.
Excuse me, Mayor and council members. This is a preliminary and final plat that is kind of the companion application for a 6-unit townhome development that the Planning Commission approved last month. The site is on 109th, next to Hoover School here. The address is 2403 109th Avenue. This is a preliminary plat. You can see these are the 6 lots for the townhomes. And then the 7th lot is the common area around the townhomes. You notice there is a drainage and utility easement that showed up in some of the paperwork that the surveyor used for the plat. It hasn't been verified whether that's an actual easement or not. That'll have to be verified, and if it is in existence, it'll have to be vacated. If not, it just won't be on the final draft of the final plat.
Mr. Harlicker, when we looked at this the last time with the last project, weren't the buildings pushed over to the east side, or am I remembering that wrong?
Mayor, I think you're right. They moved, this side over here is where the entrance is and the garage is. That was done in response to this property owner here to get the heavier activity away from his house and
Oh.
yard.
Okay. That was my concern, was that the neighbor was okay with this.
Yep.
or- Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
the layout here actually addressed some of the concerns that were raised earlier.
Okay, good.
And this is the, it's a little bit cleaner, easier to see. This is the final plat for the townhome development. At the July Planning Commission meeting, no one spoke at the public hearing. Also at that meeting, the commission voted unanimously to approve the corresponding site plan for this project. With that, it's recommended that the council approve of the preliminary plat and resolution 2068 granting final plat approval with the conditions that all engineering comments be addressed. If verified, the 5-foot wide utility easement in the middle of the site be vacated, and park dedication in the amount of $8,160. That's $1,360 per lot for the 6 lots. Be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording.
All right. Council, questions of Mr. Harlicker?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
So, Mr. Harlicker, right before the meeting, I had gotten an email from somebody, but I was going to be out of town, so I forwarded it to you. They said they weren't going to be able to make the commission meeting public hearing, but they had some concerns. Can you summarize what those concerns were and whether they're germane to the plat resolution?
I did not have an opportunity to look at, you sent it tonight?
No, this was probably on the 16th, like an hour before the meeting, and you said you had talked to that person a week earlier or something like that.
Yeah, the commission, he ended up coming to the meeting. It was the neighbor
Oh, okay.
to the west here. And I had spoke to him on the phone, and we discussed his issues about, he wanted a fence along this property line, which was made a condition of the approval, as well as landscaping that better buffered his property from the townhouses. And the applicant did agree to that, so they'll be modifying the landscape plan to address those issues.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions of Mr. Harlicker? Councilmember Kicker?
In planning case 20-9, I make a motion that the council approve the preliminary plot and approve resolution 20-68 granting final plat approval for Noberg Townhomes with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. If verified, the 5-foot wide utility easement in the middle of the site must be vacated, and 3, park dedication in the amount of $8,160, which is $1,360 per 6 lots, shall be paid prior to releasing the plat for recording.
Second. Motion by Kicker, second by Wells. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item 11, which is to consider resolution 19-28 sub 8, approving plans and specs and ordering ad for bids for Northdale Boulevard traffic signal and intersection improvements. Mr. Himmer, you want to come up? Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a project we've been working on for some time. This is in conjunction with the potential Famous Dave's redevelopment. We're still working with them on a development agreement to have that back to get their contribution. We've already executed the waiver of subdivision for the other properties that would be benefited by this. We wanted to get this out for bid now, and we hope to be able to award a contract on September 15th. And it sounds like the developer is on track for a mid-September closing on the property, and that's really what the holdup is right now. Until they close, they can't execute this agreement. But the longer we wait, the more difficult it will be to get it done before winter. So we've got a lot to get done here in the next 6 weeks to make sure this can happen. Otherwise, it may get pushed a little bit. But that's the gist of what this project is. I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Himmer?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I think one of our concerns all along was going to be, you know, the backup between Main Street and the signalized intersection. Are the signalized lights and everything going to be coordinated with the other ones? So to mitigate some of that, are they tied together?
Yes, Councilmember Skoviak, there'll be an interconnect with the lights on Main Street for everything that's on Main Street would be coordinated with the signal as well. We would also have a JPA with Anoka County for them to perform maintenance, and so since it's their signal, their system, their design, that would resolve that issue.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of Mr. Himmer on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, Councilmember Geisler?
I would just make the comment, so if people aren't fully aware where this is, it's on Northdale as you're going towards Menards is on your right, if you're going north, Costco's on your left. It would be a signalized intersection as you would be entering into Menards. And as part of this, it also is the controlling median component by the Costco exit as well, correct?
That's correct.
To eliminate the people who try and take the left turn out of Costco. So all of that will help the traffic in this area. Our police department hopefully should not have as many crashes in that area. So that's what we're talking about.
All right.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will
Thank
make
you.
a motion to adopt resolution 19-28 sub 8, approving plans and specifications and ordering an advertisement for bids for Northdale Boulevard traffic signal and intersection improvements.
Second?
Motion by Geisler, second by Kicker. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are at the open mic portion of the meeting. Is anybody here to speak with us for open mic? All right, let me just read this here. Open mic provides an opportunity for the public to address the city council on subjects that are not part of the regular meeting agenda, and the public is invited to express any concerns they may have which are relevant to the affairs, policies, or practices of the city of Coon Rapids. Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, so please approach the podium, state your name and address before addressing the council, and all remarks will be made from the podium and addressed to the council as a whole. Open mic is not a time for problem solving, but for hearing the speaker for informational purposes only. And, all right, go ahead, sir.
Todd Lutman, 10559 Martin Street, Northwest. Issue multi-pets. Address for this issue is 1846 106th Avenue. It's been 2 years now. They've added more and more dogs, and we finally just got the questionnaire from the city for the neighbors. Nothing has been done. And they just keep getting more animals. From what I understand, the code is anything over 2 animals is against code. And it's been dealt with for 2 years now, calling, nothing's been done. What can be done for that?
So the question, the questionnaire that you just received is because they just applied for a
Last year, I was told application was dropped off. This year, I was told nothing was documented last year, so, oh well, nothing, it's not an issue with the city. It was finally documented this year, and it's been almost 2 months. We were told that it was a month-long process. Multiple neighbors around are having issues with this. It's causing us no peace. The dogs are aggressive, the dogs are noisy. We can't go out in our yards and enjoy the night. Like a nice night like tonight, we can't go outside because those dogs charge fence, constantly barking. And been trying for 2 years now to get it resolved with the city. And wondering what can be done to expedite this.
Well, I think you just did it. I mean, bringing it here, now staff will investigate this, and they'll have to bring a report back to us, and they'll send you a letter as to what's going on. And I guarantee you, we are all very curious to find out what's happening with that.
All right.
So
Okay.
we'll be hearing about it, I'm sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here to address council for open mic this evening? Seeing that, did you get the name and address? Yes? Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll close open mic then, and we don't have any reports on previous open mics, and we are at other business. Chief Piper is not here this evening, but kudos to Chief Piper. Great ceremony out on the Hanson overpass this morning, as he had an opportunity to thank all of the partners that were involved in that. And the guy that didn't get as much credit as I think he should have is Chief Piper. He was just stayed right on top of this, and I am sure that bridge is there because of his efforts. But it was a nice ceremony.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
You probably were, I was just a tad bit late, and I saw it on the news on CCO, and it was your story of your mother that made the nightly news.
She called me just as I was leaving.
So it was just a beautiful day out there, and it's great to have it, and will add a lot of safety to the city.
Yeah, beautiful project. Other business? Ms. Lensmeyer.
Mr. Mayor and council members, there's a primary election coming up on Tuesday. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're also open for direct balloting, which we call early absentee, if you wish to vote before, or you can call here and we'll give you information, or you can come here. We're here 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. We are open Saturday from 10 to 3, and Monday we'll be here till 5 p.m. Once we get past Monday at 5 p.m., you'll have to go to the poll.
And Ms. Lensmeyer, you just kind of rolled right over that. Direct balloting, is that the word you said?
Right.
Because this is no longer absentee balloting. When they come in and vote, they're actually putting their ballots right in the machine, correct?
Yes, for the week prior to Election Day, they're allowed to come in and they can fill out an application. We'll give them their ballot and they deposit it right in the ballot counter.
Excellent.
And I can attest to that because I did my voting early today.
Yeah. And that's down in the Civic Center end, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Stemwedel?
Mayor, council, since we're on that topic, I'll just remind council that because of that primary election next week, the council gets the pleasure of canvassing the primary election results, which we have scheduled for the morning of Friday the 14th at 7:30 a.m. right here in the chambers. It only takes about 2 minutes, so we need at least 4 folks on the council to show up for that. So if you're not able to attend, please let me know, and we'll cross you off the list, but that was it.
Okay. All right.
Just a follow-up question for Mr. Stemwell.
Councilmember Johnson?
So the splash pad reopened.
It did.
So I know a lot of people have been waiting for that. Can you just briefly summarize what are the kind of rules and expectations related to that?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, yes. So the splash pad did open a little over a week ago, and so primarily, cities had to take one of 2 directions, depending on the type of system they have. We don't have recirculated water, therefore, we don't have as many mandated requirements about how we can open that facility. So in some other situations, if you're recirculating, you have to follow more of the aquatic guidelines, like it was a pool, and limit to 50% and things like that. And so our approach has been to post a lot of signage there about distancing, about what's cleaned and what's not cleaned, about the hours and so forth, and sort of expecting people to be able to follow those rules. I haven't heard in the last few days, but I know in the first week it seemed to go really well. I mean, it wasn't overrun with people, which was one of our concerns. And we are monitoring that. We do have staff from the ice center that are out there about every hour to 2 hours, you know, walking around and kind of paying attention to how many people are out there. If it becomes an issue, we might have to take some more extreme steps to limit the amount of people that are out there. But for now, so far, so good.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business to come before?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Just a thanks to the CTN and the IT crew. Kind of at the last minute here, went over to Zooming in just because I've got some sick kids at home and not feeling great myself. So it was nice that option's there, and they, you know, whenever they put that thing together at the last minute, I always just want to appreciate it.
And we appreciate you staying home if you're not feeling well.
But joining us.
Just as timely as it was when the train came on,
Yes.
under, you know, as Chief Piper was.
Yeah. All
Mr.
right.
Mayor, I do have one item.
Councilmember Geisler?
So I just want to bring up, so at our work session last week, I presented a potential resolution on diverse and safe communities. And as we discussed this as a council, while I would love to have also had the resolution, I want people to know that we do want this to be a safe community for everyone. And to that, so we're going to be working on putting a group together. We should know the staff members this week, Councilmember Johnson, and I will be looking at this to say, what are the things that we can do from an action perspective to ensure that we are making those statements of inclusion and welcoming to all members of our community, more than just here's a resolution, file it and move on, but to make it more actionable in our community. So I wanted to thank the rest of the council for having that conversation and, you know, allowing us, and we're going to start moving forward on a few more actions. So stay tuned.
All right. Any other business to come before council this evening? Somebody want to get us out of here?
I'll
Thank
move to
you.
adjourn.
Second?
Motion by Johnson, second by Kicker to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned.